All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Generations GDO Springer, a neat little figure here who's is kind of a byproduct of the time that we didn't really have great Generations versions of like a lot of popular characters, so they were kind of just using like whatever mold in particular toy lines to give us some sort of facsimile of the character. So this is a retool of I believe it was Hunt for the Decepticons Tomahawk mold, which granted is a great figure. Like, I do really like that toy, and I really like this toy too, but of course is not a triple changer, just turns into a helicopter here. So it doesn't totally work as a version of Springer. But it's a neat figure nonetheless. I do really like the color scheme, actually. Like, I love this sort of like metallic detailing up on the wing here with the like gold and teal stripes there. I feel like that looks really cool. He does come with the same weapons that Tomahawk did, which were these little missile launchers here, which on Springer, at least, I cut these down so that they would not be sticking way out the back, because like obviously for safety things they like stuck way out the back, which you'll see on my version of Tomahawk there. But he also comes with a new weapon, which is a little a sword here for him to hold, so he's got at least some version of Springer's classic weapons there. And in terms of storage for this stuff, like, this is a little bit less integrated as these are, because there's lots of stuff you can do with these. Like, you can plug them on under the wings here, which is I think the best looking spot for them. But they also do have the little like 3mm clip system weapons that they were kind of using at least at the time of Hunt for the Decepticons. So you can kind of attach these wherever. You've got little clips here on the ends of the wings there. Just scared myself by that on the wings here. There's also ones back here. So you've got some options, and then, oh my gosh, and then these are on ball joints, of course, so you can kind of like adjust them and arrange them as needed. I still think that they look much better under the wings there, but if you plug them on here or there, then there's actually somewhere to put the sword, because there's really nowhere else for this to go. Yeah, I don't think that really works, like having a sword on one side. It's a shame that they didn't find some way to like, have it actually attach in the bottom here, because like you can kind of wedge it in like in between the legs here if you just like let the legs not be like fully sort of locked into place. Like, this is how I used to store it, and like I feel like that works fairly well, but the legs are like not fully closed in. But yeah, it's okay, but it's not my favorite thing there. It's just not an entirely integrated weapon, just because it wasn't part of the original mold, obviously. But yeah, so I don't know, personally that's how I choose to store the sword, and then I keep the missile launchers underneath the wings here, just because I feel like that's definitely where they actually look best on the helicopter mode. But yeah, to each their own. I'll just leave this off to the side for now. But yeah, he also does have this little like rotating like camera thing in the front here, which is kind of a neat feature. He's got a pretty decently spinning propeller here. This one I actually did get, like new when it came out, as opposed to Tomahawk, which I didn't get till years later used. So the rotors are in much better shape on my version of Springer than they are on Tomahawk, which are all like bent and warped. I don't know if that's something to do with the figure or just the way that it was stored by the previous owner, but either way, in terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, just for that standard one. Obviously not like a great scale there, being a deluxe helicopter with a deluxe car, but that's what they look like together. Here he is with Studio Series 86 Springer, who's obviously a much more, G1 accurate version of his helicopter mode there. But, if you prefer the kind of earthier version, this guy exists. And then last but not least, here he is with Tomahawk here. So you can see what I'm talking about the rotors there being all bent and warped down. I don't know. I still have this guy like in my Canon display, so maybe I'll try to like switch the rotors. I also switched their heads at one point because I was like, well, I just kind of like the color scheme better on this guy. But I don't know. You could take like the best versions of both and make them like, make some sort of Frankensteinian monster to make the best version of Tomahawk. But I like both of them. It's just, in terms of actual feel of the figures, my Springer has held up a lot better than this figure has, in terms of like, the strength of the ball joints, the warpedness of the rotors, and, yada, yada, etc., etc. But that's what the two of them look like together. And then, yeah, to get onto transformation, obviously he's pretty much exactly the same as Tomahawk here. First thing you do is just take the the propeller blades here and just rotate them in like that so they sit in this L position. Then you want to take the legs here. They will kind of untab from underneath and just fold them down like that for now. And then you can take this little section here, close that up. And then you kind of, it's easier to, you have to like get these out of the way. So you can rotate these sections up like this, and then untab the back here and kind of bring this out on this like sort of double jointed armature here to be the shoulders, which sometimes it gets a little bit stuck, which is kind of annoying, but bring it out to the side like that. And then for each of these sections here, you kind of double hinge these down, which also flips out and reveals the hand, which is kind of a neat little feature there. And then with those out of the way, you can take the waist and kind of fold it down the rest of the way, untab the legs. We can flip in the little landing gear here. Well, we'll leave that one out for now, and fold it down like this. And basically you want to fold this section through this section so that that this becomes the heel and this becomes the foot, and just flip it around like that. There you have his legs all done. Then you want to take these chunks here with like all the shoulders and everything and rotate them forward. And then because these are on ball joints, you can kind of rotate these back down to kind of like sit properly behind his back, just like that. And then you want to take the cockpit section and kind of fold this whole section down, and then also open up the cockpit to allow the head to go through. And then we flip in the landing gear here, and then just lock that in like that, fold up the head the rest of the way, and close this bit up on the chest, and then just rotate his head around, which you don't actually need to do for transformation, but he does kind of end up peeking out of the underside of the helicopter if you don't. But yeah, there we have GDO Springer in his robot mode. And yeah, in general, I do really like his design. I don't necessarily love it like as Springer per se, but just as a cool looking robot design, I feel like he is kind of interesting looking. I do like the new head sculpt here. It's not like, you know, perfect Springer-esque, but it kind of bridges the gap between being like this aesthetic and the G1 aesthetic. So it works well enough. Now, obviously, you can give him his sword here and have him hold it in his hand. You can do all the same thing with the missile launchers as you could, you know, before. Like you could attach them to the clips, which are now on his arms, or the ones that are back here. Again, with the sword, there's no real like storage for it unless you have the missile launchers plugged in somewhere else. I mean, you can just kind of like put it back here, like, you know, in between the rotor blade. It like really has nowhere to go, and that works well enough for me, but it's not, you know, it's not like really an intentional solution there. But yeah, in terms of his articulation, the head is on a ball joint, can rotate around and gets a pretty decent amount of look up just because of the cut in the back there. Shoulders are on ball joints, which can rotate around and go out to the side. Unfortunately, these bits don't really lock in place, so when you move his shoulders, this whole section kind of wants to move, which is a bit annoying. He's got a bicep swivel, a very high elbow bend, but it does get 90 degrees. Nothing really at the wrists, nothing really at the waist. You can kind of move this section up and down to sort of accommodate the hip movement there. You can bring the hips forward. They're just on ball joints and back and out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel there. Not a super deep knee bend unless you want to give him like the digitigrade like chicken legs there, like you can kind of do that. And then the feet, put the sword off to the side for now. The feet can tilt forward a bit because like the heel and the foot can both tilt forward. They can't really tilt back like entirely because the heel only goes this far back, whereas the foot itself can tilt further back. And then there's no side to side tilt. He just has like a slight like stance, you know, a stance there, as it was pretty common at the time. I saw a lot of people also at the time like flipping this around to make the front section his toe as well, just to differentiate him from Tomahawk. And you know, you can definitely do that and it looks okay. I feel like that works better if you're like using this as like a version of Whirl or something like that, but you know, you can do that. He's got that options there, that option there. But yeah, you know, nothing too crazy there, but generally decent articulation. In terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipe. So you can see pretty much an average size deluxe, a little bit taller than him. Here he is again with Studio Series 86 Springer, which is, you know, like obviously a much better, kind of more G1 looking Springer. But, you know, this was weirdly one of the first generation Springers that was even released. I think there was like another one that was like maybe like a Legends class figure. I can't remember if that one came out first or if this one came out first. And that honestly might have been part of like the Universe toy line. But yeah, no, he was like the kind of your best version of Springer at the time, unless you wanted to go with like Energon Bulkhead or something like that. But yeah, it was a while before, you know, we got our proper Springers. And, you know, if you don't like if you don't care about the G1 look, like this guy's fine, but you could also go for like Thrilling 30 Springer, who's like famously a much more, cool figure. But yeah, they both look good, but obviously he's kind of a product of the time. If you want a version of Springer, he's not really your best option. And then here he is again with Tomahawk, so you can see what the two of them look like together. And yeah, they both look good. Again, in general, I feel like I like Springer's color scheme a little bit better. It's a little bit more interesting to me. This figure is also held up quite a bit better than Tomahawk, whose like legs flop all over the place. The head ball joint is super loose, which doesn't, it's just kind of a hand feel thing. It doesn't matter all that much since it's such a small piece. And he's got the warping on the propellers there. So, Springer feels better, but Tomahawk is like a character that isn't Springer. So like he's the one I have on like my definitive Transformers shelf. But, whatever, neither here nor there. That's what the two of them look like together. And yeah, he's a fun figure in general. Like I said, because he is a version of Springer, I feel like he's kind of not a really relevant figure anymore, just because like we've got better versions of Springer, like like the Studio Series 86 version and the Thrilling 30 version, and then I guess the Siege version too. It's not a mold that I like, but still it's a better looking Springer. But so I don't know, I feel like if he was just some other random character like Tomahawk, I feel like he'd be a little bit more fondly remembered. But yeah, either way, that's pretty much all there is to GDO Springer. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the videos. I do reviews every Tuesday and Thursday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Generations GDO Springer.